Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Necromaniacs podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, man. Really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. Trying to manage my apocalyptic anxiety over the potential of perishing in a nuclear inferno. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing fine.
Well, yeah, that. I mean, come on. Yes, yeah. The state of the world is, I feel like, has been scary since, 2016 now?
Yes.
Where, I feel like we're just sort of, there was Trump, there was COVID, and now there's, a crazy Russian man maybe trying to take over the world.
Let's not forget the redneck uprising on January 6th.
Yes, that too. Yeah. Yeah, a lot's been going on that level, and it sucks. There's no other way to put it. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's a little definitely a little tense, and I've been watching the news a lot, and but not trying not to get too spun out by the whole thing either,
Yeah, same here. I try not to go too hard into it. They just try to hope that everything's gonna be okay. We'll see.
Yeah.
How much more can fucking people take? Jesus Christ. After COVID, and now that that's kind of dying down, this pops up. And I have to say one thing though: dying in the apocalypse has got to be probably the ultimate way to go, because you're not going to miss anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I it's funny. I was thinking about this the other night because I've been working on new music and all kinds of stuff, and working on new music with new people, which is cool. I got these other projects going on, which is exciting. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is cool. And then I'm thinking about how some megalomaniac in Russia could potentially just decide one day to fucking destroy everything, and I'll never be able to fully actualize all this cool stuff that I'm working on.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about that too, because Mike, as we talked before we started recording, some things are going on in my life. And I always think of those zombie apocalypse movies, like the couple, someone was probably getting married, got a new job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things were going real good, and they're like, oh, this zombie thing, the week and it's all done, and then a month later, the entire world's, over. I always think about stuff like that when things are going kind of good for me,
yeah,
something cataclysmic is just gonna fuck it up.
That the part that you're talking about is my favorite part in the zombie movies, where it's the very beginnings of everything, where life's normal. Then there'll be some report on the news about these strange people who are sick or whatever, and that's always my favorite part of the zombie story is the beginning.
Me too. Did you ever watch? I know you're watching The Walking Dead. Did you ever watch Fear the Walking Dead?
Yeah, that was. I watched the first 2 seasons. I actually liked it, man. I haven't kept up on it though, but I thought the first 2 seasons were good.
I watched the first season, and I thought because it actually had what I was talking about. One episode opens with a wedding.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck it, we're still gonna go through with this, and everything's gonna be okay. And it's not. And yeah, that's what I liked about it. It was the beginning when things were unsure, and you get to see everything sort of breaking down, or the first 5 minutes of Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah, that was great.
We're just there in the TV station, everything's just complete chaos, and those are always my favorite parts of those things too.
There's a graphic novel, the Night of the Living Dead. I think it was maybe Boom Studios did an adaptation of it, and comic book adaptation. And the first issue is they're at the end of the first issue. They're sitting in a diner, and it was a character who it's a little bit of a prequel to the movie, the original.
Oh.
And one of the characters is sitting in the diner, and he's looking out, and there's all these zombies in the top of the hill walking towards the diner. And the waitress is like, "Oh, what do you think that's all? What are those people doing up there?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I guess we're gonna find out pretty soon." And it was sure enough, they got attacked by these zombies.
Oh man, yeah. What is that called again?
Night of the Living Dead. It was the
Night of the Living
comic
Dead.
book.
Okay.
Yeah, the comic book adaptation. There was like a couple of trades. Like you can get them in trades now, probably for like a couple of bucks on Amazon or something like that.
That's got to be because it's in the public domain. Anyone can do anything with that property, right?
That's true. That's why there was an onslaught of DVDs with all this extra stuff tacked on that you could buy over the years.
Yeah, I remember like watching the movie once, and it was like a completely different like ending. I was like, "Am I fucking tripping? Am I remembering this movie completely wrong?"
Yeah, everyone was releasing versions of that movie for a while. It seems like, you know.
Yeah, I know it's in the Criterion Collection. I would probably consider that the most, if you're going to own it, the most definitive one. You know.
That's the version I have, actually. I mean, I have a couple of those bootleg ones, but I threw down and I got the Criterion because, you know, it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Criterion horror. I mean, that's a winning combination.
Yeah. So you've been checking out anything of note? It's been a while since we talked, actually. You know, it seems.
It has. Yeah, I listened to your Texas Chainsaw Massacre podcast. I also saw the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre while I was in Texas.
Oh, wow.
I'm goofy like that, man. I like to, you know, every time ISIS would tour like Japan, I'd watch Japanese movies over there. You know, bring my little portable DVD player because that's how you did it back then. So I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool to watch a direct sequel to a movie that was, you know, I assumed that they filmed the new one there, and it was pretty obvious to me right away that they did not film that there. And I looked it up, and as you mentioned it's filmed in Bulgaria, which is not a suitable stand-in for Texas. I don't think.
No, not for sure. It's not.
To say the movie was a disappointment on every level would be a total understatement. And I talked with you and with the other Mike too, like about my feelings for the movie. I really hated it.
I hated it too. Like it was. The more I think about it, the more I hate it. Actually, you know what I mean. I hated it when we did the episode, but as time went on, I hated it even more. Actually.
Yeah, because the more it turns over in your brain, you're like, not one character made any sort of decision that a real person would make. It just made absolutely no sense, and it hits on all these hot, you know, button issues, but they don't really go anywhere. There's a whole bit with the Confederate flag, but that goes nowhere. There's a whole thing like they make us kind of like oh, isn't capitalism terrible? But like this movie has nothing to say about capitalism. It's just throwing things out there, but nothing sticks. If anything,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. I mean to cut you
off. No,
off.
I was gonna say, no, it's okay. Like it's funny, like people are calling it a woke movie, but I feel like the opposite. Like it kind of has like a conservative sort of lean to it, whereas like you want these people are terrible, and the only like decent person is like, you know, the fucking gun-toting redneck guy. You know, and that's like the right, one actually. Guy. That's like the one guy in the movie. I was like, I hope he lives. You know, I'm like, wait a minute, like this movie is flipped. Like
you're right, actually. It seems like he was the only one who was kind of reasonable. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or acted like a person. I guess he was really the only like believable character in the movie. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of loose things that never come together. Like one of the main girls being from the town Harlow. She mentions, "Oh, my grandmother's from there." That doesn't come up again. Nothing in that movie connected. Nothing, except I did agree with you on the ending. I did think the last shot or whatever, last scene was great and deserved to be in a better movie.
Too little, too late, though. Really, I mean, but yes,
yeah. If you're gonna call yourself a direct sequel to one of what is probably top 5 greatest horror movies of all time, you got to bring it.
Totally, man. You know, and the real quick about the Confederacy, like Texas joined the Confederacy kind of late in the game, actually, in the Civil War.
Oh, you know? Okay. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I'm not saying they weren't part of. They were for sure, but they were like kind of a late in the game in that whole movement. Really, it wasn't like Virginia. You know what I mean? Like where they were like, all right away, we got to get this shit together here. We want slaves. You know, so
right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't know that whole angle. Like I feel like movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre speak to a more primal truth as opposed to like political stuff or like cultural things or a movie about that like that should be about like survival and like primal fear and things like that as opposed to oh well you're offending my sensibilities, you know, that's not really on the table in a story like that, you know.
Very, very odd choices made all around in that. And I know there's been some discussion about what's wrong with they're just a good, fun gore fest. Well, nothing's wrong with that. But again, you're calling yourself a direct sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That movie was not good, gory fun. It was a fucking nightmare. The last 20 minutes is just like a girl screaming. And that's why it's so powerful.
And there's no gore in the first movie.
Then there's no gore. Yeah, of course. And this, I mean, definitely brings that. It has the gore, and if that's what you want, great. And if you like the movie, great. I really hated it. Thought it was one of the worst movies. It's definitely the worst thing I've seen this year. I mean, it's only March, but still, I could see this in a top 5 worst of the year for me.
I'll agree with that. It was like a huge disappointment, and it's funny because like when I heard they were remaking it again or doing not a remake but a sequel, I was like, oh god, this is going to be awful. And then,
yeah.
But some of the imagery that they had in the trailers and stuff, I'm like, well, this might not be half bad. And then of course I was let down.
Yeah, like the image of Leatherface kind of blending into the field of like what were the dead sunflowers or whatever that was.
Yeah, that was cool, right? That was very cool, but
that scene could have played out so much more clever. Like instead, the girl like tries to reach over to get out, and Leatherface is gonna like the camera's gonna pan back, and Leatherface is behind her. Imagine that scene where she gets out of the van, you're seeing it through her point of view, like looking around, and she kind of like sees like, is that a guy out there? Is that him?
Yeah.
There was no like it was just no suspense. Every choice I thought they made was the wrong one, except the ending. One more thing about it, I thought this curve, the main girl being a school shooting survivor, was truly tasteless.
Yeah.
In a movie like that, if you're like it just felt wrong for something like that. If you're gonna bring that aspect into a story, make it count, make it matter. Like, and I thought like it was just kind of like a throwaway, like make it more of a motivation for her character. But I think they tried to make those connections, but it just did, like everything else didn't work. Sally bringing back that character did not work. She was a complete moron in this movie, which lends credit to your conspiracy theory. I was into that, man. I was like, you might be onto something.
I think I'm right about that because all the things that would connect it to Texas Chainsaw Massacre were like these like added on, not inconsequential things.
Yeah, it was very weird, and like the scene of him breaking down the wall and taking his chainsaw out, the original chainsaw, is supposed to be like a big moment. Like, okay, well, he kept his chainsaw from the original massacre, not the mask, not the apron.
Yeah.
And like he's got to be like 70 years old.
Easily.
And he moves like he's Batman.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And I think the true Leatherface, any old chainsaw would do with him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I don't. God, that movie. But it was something to watch in the hotel while we were in Austin, and my girlfriend was hooting it up, thought it was one of the like funniest things. Like you would think she was watching a comedy. She's just like, this is just so terrible. Like she was enjoying it on that level. And she got to take a break from me watching the first 48 for like 6 hours straight. It's like the most hotel thing to do is just to watch a show like that for like a couple hours, and like you've watched like 6 episodes.
That's like on tour when you just get to the hotel room and turn the TV on and it's like Cops or the first 48 or like just some fucking reality show like that and just keep it running all night.
Yeah, exactly. Or like some movie with like Gerard Butler in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other things, I mean, won't talk about it too much, but I did see the Batman. I know you're going to see it after we record this.
I'm going tonight.
Uh,
Yes.
Going tonight, man. I wish I could go back and see it for the first time again. Like, I think you're really gonna like it. This is my favorite Batman movie, and it's not even close. Like, it is by far my favorite. And I like Nolan's trilogy. I watched it before going into this. It's different seeing them through older eyes. Those movies are still good, but I see more flaws in them than I used to.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But they're still good. You know, Christopher Nolan. It's such. It'd be very interesting to compare The Dark Knight to this because they're both long movies. They're both epic, but like Christopher Nolan kind of zips through his movies. Like they're long, but man, they just move, 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 move. This one's a little bit more evenly paced, a little bit slower, but that's not a nitpick at all. I think it's beneficial to the movie. And if you're a big fan of the comic book, I think this will end up being like the definitive Batman movie for you. I think.
Wow. Wow. I'm excited, man. Yeah, the theater is like 8 minutes from where I live. It's
Oh, that's
the
great.
AMC Menlo Park Cinema, which is a dine-in theater. Which and I might dine in, man. I might. You can order before you get there. And
Oh,
when you're
well,
seated, they bring your shit to you.
I also saw this at a place like that. It was my first time going to the Alamo Draft House,
Oh, cool.
a chain that started in Texas and now there's one in LA. And same thing. And the food was legit good. Like I was shocked. It wasn't like crappy movie theater food. It was like real, kind of bar
Yeah.
food kind of stuff, but like a good version of that. And it's also one of those theaters that takes film very seriously. Like they will throw your ass out for talking or looking at your phone. And I respect that because movie going today is you never know what there's going to be. Like when I lived in New York, was the worst theater experience 2 years of my life. Like every time I went to the movies, there's some fucking chucklehead talking on his phone, something, always something.
That comes to mind a story that me and Mike, when we covered the Blair Witch remake, the most recent Blair Witch movie.
Oh, like the sequel. Yeah, it was like a sequel.
Yeah. So if you go back to that episode, there's a similar. I kind of tell the same story, but me and Mike went together to go see it at what it's now a Nighthawk Cinema, but it used to be called the Pavilion in Park Slope or Prospect Park rather.
Okay.
And it was like the last days of the cinema. Like they were closing it down. Like they took up the rug, and there was like the seating was gone. They had these like weird recliners in there and stuff. And there was no music. There was no like previews or anything like that. You're just sitting in this fucking dark room. And it was me and Mike. And then there's like these two like not high school chicks, but like I don't know, girls maybe like 20, 22 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so this girl's on her phone like the entire time and there's nothing to drown out our conversation. You know what I mean? We're just sitting there, and I'm like getting more fucking pissed off. I'm like, I hope this bitch gets off the phone. Hey, sorry about that. I hope this young lady gets off the phone, when the movie starts, right? The movie starts, right? Still on her phone, right? And I go, excuse me, can you get off your phone? And she's like, I'm not on my phone. I'm like, you're on your phone. I'm like, how are you? What do you mean you're not on your phone? I can hear you talking. You're not on your phone.
I love that when people just like,
no, I'm not on my phone.
That's not what I'm doing.
It's like, I'm like, oh man, hey, I could have got shot. Didn't someone get shot recently from saying something like that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was recently. I think it was a couple of years ago. I feel like that probably happens like at least a couple times a year, probably. Like people getting in an altercation over something so dumb like that. But yeah, no, it's irritating, man. God, I remember going to see the Brothers Grimm at some theater in New York, and this guy and his girlfriend sat in front of me, got like 2 huge things of popcorn, soda, candy, the whole night. Like, he probably spent like $60, and like 10 minutes in, he just said, "What the fuck is this movie? What?" what the fuck are we watching? Like trying to get like the crowd on his side. I mean, in his defense, that was a terrible movie,
Yeah.
but um, I just never like New Yorkers are just a different breed, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely are, man. And the show, the Batman opened last week, so I'm hoping this week it's not as jammed because I tried to see it last weekend, but every show was sold out. So
Yeah, and weirdly enough, it's coming to HBO Max next month.
I want to see this on
So
the screen for sure.
you definitely want to see that. This is a theater movie if there ever was one. There was great sound in the theater we saw it at. The score was booming. The whole, Batmobile sounded great. Everything about it, man. Like seeing something on a big screen with great sound. There's really nothing better. Like I really feel that you can't quite duplicate it at home yet.
Yeah, I definitely will probably never be able to duplicate sitting in a movie theater at my house. So yeah.
Yeah. I guess one last thing I'll mention. Like I said, I was in Austin. I drove out there. I didn't fly, so listened to a lot of podcasts. And one I just want to mention, it's exclusively on Spotify. So if you deleted your Spotify account because you hate misinformation, you can't listen to it. It's called Gene and Roger, and it's all about the beginnings of. It's all about basically the careers and life of Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel.
Oh wow, that's interesting, man.
And yeah, I mean, I was a very big fan of that show as a little kid, and I think Roger Ebert has a huge part in why I'm such a film fan. Every year, I would get his year end book where all his reviews would be compiled into this year end book along with some essays he wrote. It's like I think the first time I ever read about the Cannes Film Festival was from Roger Ebert. So it was really nice to go through and listen to all that stuff again, and just reminded me how sad I was when or how sad I am that just we don't have those guys in the world anymore.
Yeah, that I actually might check that out. I still have Spotify.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
I'm not. That doesn't. Please don't try to frame this as some kind of right wing conspiracy that I listen to. Still have Spotify.
yeah,
But I still check stuff out on Spotify, and so yeah, I'll definitely be tuning into that.
yeah. I mean, I use usually use the other app, but like this was only on Spotify, so I was like, I really wanted to hear it, and each episode is probably like 25, 30 minutes. You can zip through it. It's like probably like 8 or 9 episodes. You can zip through it on like one trip or whatever, one sitting. It definitely like killed a nice chunk of the drive the first day. And if you're at all a fan of those guys or like the history of film criticism, I highly recommend it. Good stuff. But yeah, what about you, man?
Well,
What have you been up to?
I just recently watched Diabolical, the boys animated thing on Prime. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think I've seen the ad, but like I've never never checked it out.
I'm a huge fan of the boys, the Garth Ennis comic book series from back in the day, and
Right.
the TV show on Prime is great. I really enjoyed both seasons, and there's like a little side mini series of these animated shorts that I checked out, and some of them were really good, some of them were like meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
And but it was an interesting concept. It was like they go into some of the backstory on a couple of the characters, and then some of the other stuff are these just related, almost peripheral things that go on. You know,
Yeah.
some of the I mean they're short. They're like 15 minutes long maybe, and some of them are just like, that was a waste of my 15 minutes. But some of them were actually really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So worth checking out.
And I've been talking to Mike about this, but I've been really, really into Severance, which is on the Apple Plus app, and very, very, very compelling show. Brandon Legion, he's the one who actually told me about this, and
The Horror Wolf podcast, right?
yeah, Horror Wolf
Yeah.
podcast,
Yes.
and I really, really like it. It's It has like a Thomas Ligotti sort of vibe to it. It's almost like if you took Thomas Ligotti and Philip K. Dick and combine them, and it's a story that's very similar to some of the stuff that's in the Gotti's Teatro Grotesco, where there's the short stories like The Town Manager and The Red Tower and that kind of thing, where it's like the dystopian workplace environment scenario.
Yeah, very theme he comes back to quite
Yes.
a bit in his writing. Yeah.
So this has to do with like a corporate environment where they have all of the employees. They sever their out of work personality and their inside work personality. So when they're working, it's like you don't exist outside of your job. Like you perpetually are in the workplace environment. Like you leave, your physical body leaves, but you have two aspects of who you are, right? And then when you're outside, you have no idea what's going on or even what this other person's life is like, or what you're even doing inside the workplace.
Oh wow, that sounds that's nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, man. And then there's a part which made me think even more of like Ligotti, specifically the darkness, the shadow, the last book in Teatro Grotesco, the last short story.
Yeah.
Where the one character via videotape, because the other character, one character really, she like wants to, get out. She doesn't want to do this. And there's like a video message from her outside personality being like, well, I exist, you don't exist.
Wow.
And it's like that whole like the darkness, the shadow, and like your intellect and all that sort of stuff is like a daydream of this like other, that whole like esoteric sort of, existential sort of vibe to it. And there's a lot of that in the film. And then in the last episode, there was like a very weird fiction thing happens where there's like this amorphous black mass of like dripping. I don't know. It's cool. Very cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if the creators of the show were inspired by Ligotti.
I'm going to try to. Yeah, I could see that, man. I mean, it's got a great cast too. It's got that what the hell is the guy's name? The dude that was in he was in Eastbound and Down. Adam, whatever his name is.
Oh, the dude from Party Down and Parks and Rec and all that. Like, what is his fucking name?
Yeah, he's like a comedic actor, but he's playing a straight role.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I remember hearing about that show, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that has anything to do with the movie Severance. Like, they took that idea and are now going to make it into a show.
No, I thought it's the same thing actually, because like there was that UK film Severance, which was really good. And,
yeah, I like that. We covered that during one of the director's other movies, Creep.
Yep. And then it's got John Turturro, Christopher Walken, Patricia Arquette is in it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Christopher Walken.
Yeah, legend.
Yeah, legend. Turturro, awesome. Also a legend too, really.
Also in the Batman, and he's very good in it.
Oh man, yeah. So I've been checking that out, and as a result of that, I went back and reread most of Teatro Grotesco.
That's one of my favorite collections. Yeah.
And that, of course, after reading all those stories, I had very, very intense nightmares and stuff. But,
it's funny. That same thing happens to me. The Shadow, the Darkness is the very first thing I ever read by Ligotti. I had bought this collection of short stories called 999 because I was taking a Greyhound bus from Boston to Asheville, North Carolina, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a longer story. I'm up. I'll read this. So that was my introduction to Thomas Ligotti, like 1 a.m. on a Greyhound bus, reading that.
Yeah. I mean, that if that's the first thing you read by him, that kind of lays out his whole philosophy, really. That one short story.
Yeah, a lot of like you said, a lot of his themes that pop up in his other work is very present in that story.
Yeah. Then another thing I checked out was no, it's not old, but it came out like 5 years ago. It's a movie called Thumper.
Thumper?
Yeah. It's I saw this like on Netflix a while ago, and it was just like this like a story about like an undercover cop in high school. It's like this female cop, and they're trying to frame or not frame, but they're trying to prosecute these like drug dealers, these like meth dealers in like some random midwestern lower income town. That and it's I for some reason I had this desire to watch it again, so I ended up renting it, and
Oh,
for like $3 or something, and it's got Pablo Schreiber in it, who plays like the main bad guy. I don't know if you know who that is.
that name sounds very familiar.
He was in American Gods. He was
Didn't see it.
also in the second season of The Wire, and he's one of these guys that you would see him and you would recognize him. You know.
But who is he in The Wire?
All right, you remember the the longshoremen, the
Yeah,
stevedores,
yeah,
the more sensible of the brothers who ended
yeah.
up,
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah, that guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's in this like kind of shitty but kind of awesome movie, Den of Thieves, with Gerard Butler. So
Okay.
if you're ever in a hotel on tour and Den of Thieves is on, watch it.
Yeah, and then
Um,
between The Wire and these films, he got like jacked. Like he was in The Wire, he was this kind of like skinny dude. Now he's like all yoked up and everything. So he plays like this. He's like a vet, and he's like a meth cook. And there's all these random high school kids that are selling meth. And it's kind of the reason why I watched it originally is I felt like it was based on a true story where there was the cop who was like a grown woman, but she was in high school. She had embedded herself undercover, and she was in like some romantic relationship with this high school kid, and used him to to get at the criminals. You know what I mean, or the drug dealers.
so basically, this is like a dark 21 Jump Street.
No, not really. No, I mean
Yeah.
it's like it's just like that. It's a low life film. You know, it's about like that low life. You know, that whole like
That's your shit though, man. You love that stuff.
I really I do actually. You know, where like you imagine these kids are into like Mudvayne and like new metal and stuff like that.
But not like the first wave, like the third wave of like like
Yeah,
mushroom head and
yeah,
Mudvayne, yeah, and like
yeah. They're not into corn. They're into like the New Jack like new metal stuff. You know,
yeah, like Static X.
and so yeah, and Lena Headey is in it. She plays like this police person, like a cop, cop. She plays a cop. And then Daniel Weber, who played Vince Neil in that in The Dirt, is in it too, and he plays the guy that's being victimized by the police. You know.
Ah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I barely remember seeing The Dirt. So I guess I didn't like it.
Yeah, it sucked. It was garbage. I didn't like it at all.
It was really bad. I was just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Great book though. It was one of those books I read on tour in like 2 days.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't
Yeah.
give a single fuck about Motley Crue.
No, me
But
neither. Not at all.
yeah, but that was if you're a musician or in a band or whatever, like I mean that's a must read. It just is.
That's kind of how it is, like that's our tour life is very similar to Motley Crue's tour life.
Yeah. I feel like that's what people think touring is like at like the level that Tombs or ISIS did, and like people think it's like this nonstop party, but it's really just this strict schedule you stick by.
It's like the same 5 people or 7 people or whatever. You just see the same faces every day. You get to know way too much about everyone that you're around, and then any time that you might be talking to someone that's cool, you have to leave. That's pretty much the story, really.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone sees like or reads The Dirt and thinks, oh, you're in a band. Like, yeah, like you like that's what it's like. And I mean, fuck. I mean,
You're like,
it could be further from the truth,
like
or our truth.
throwing TVs out the window of the hotel and like doing coke off of like strippers and all that. It's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if anyone in our band threw a TV out the window, well, it would be me, obviously. But I never. You go to the hotel and you go to bed because you have to get up in 4 hours.
Or you watch like the first 48, and that's on.
Or you watch the first 48, or a movie with like Gerard Butler in it that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That's tour right there, folks.
So yeah,
Anyhow,
that's about it for me, man. And before we get going, I just want to shout out to everyone. We got our I mentioned Brandon Legion, so please check out the Horror Wolf 666 podcast and Breaking the Apocalypse, which is our Mike's brother is one of the co-hosts on that. And I've been listening to that every Friday, And also another quick shout out to Into the Necrosphere, my brother Jackie Smith's podcast, and that's he mentioned it on one of his most recent episodes, where I feel like there's a little bit of a little community going on between those shows, my other show, Everything Went Black, and Necromaniacs. So it's pretty cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed on all accounts. All right. So what are we getting into today, man?
All right, so we're doing Hellbender, which just recently dropped as a Shudder exclusive, and it's the brand new film by the Addams family. And for those regular listeners, we had a special which came out the day after this showed up on Shudder, and it was an interview with all three of the Addams family members. Well, there's actually four, but Lulu was not able to join us, so I interviewed John, Zelda, and Toby, and always really, really cool people. I actually, in a weird way, I kind of feel like they're friends, in like a very, I don't know, like kind of generic way. I feel
kindred spirits sort of way.
Yeah, friendly. Like they said a lot of things like that I resonated with. Like, John was like, yeah, we're like the black flag of filmmaking. And I'm like, yeah, I'm very much can see that. They're always working on stuff. As a matter of fact, they have another film that for all I know, they completed it by now. But at the time of the interview, they were working on their follow-up to this movie. And they're just like grinding it out. They have a very unique approach. And also just like, I also think a very unique voice when it comes to making horror films.
So, yeah, I can agree with that. I checked out that interview as well, because while I didn't like The Deeper You Dig as much as you did, I still thought there was elements of it that were really interesting, and their whole dynamic I was a little confused by at first. I'm like, how did three people direct a movie? But now, after seeing another film by them, listening to the interview, I sort of get it now. Like, it really is a family affair. I mean, comedian Patton Oswalt, was just joked on the Kingcast that this movie had the shortest end credits ever because it's like four people did everything.
Yeah, totally. And so you've seen The Deeper You Dig, because we both covered it earlier on, a couple months ago. You've seen Hellbender, right?
Yes.
And that have you seen any of their other films?
I have not. And after seeing Hellbender, I'm definitely curious of where they came from and where they're going next.
Well, The Hatred was awesome too. I saw The Hatred, and I saw Knucklejack, which is like not a horror film and more of like a drama. Once again, in that low life world, which I seem to really enjoy. And,
yes.
and kind of like a mumblecore. I hate that term, but that's people will know what I mean when I say that.
I know exactly what you mean when you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and but enjoyable and compelling though.
Yeah, I think a lot of good stuff came out of that sort of genre, like that whatever mumblecore, whatever you want to call it. A lot of good directors came out of that. But they didn't start out as horror filmmakers specifically.
No,
like,
they did not. No.
Right, but that seems to be where they're heading. They seem to really have a respect and love for the genre.
Well, the thing that I think that one of the great things they pulled from making dramas before going into genre films is characterization. I mean, you and I are fans of horror, and I'll watch a lot of horror films that just have like a good idea, but kind of like paper thin throwaway characters,
Right.
And having all this experience with dramas, their characters are developed. Like there's a backstory. There's like, and not all of it is like explained to you. It's all sort of like inferred in a lot of ways. Like there's like stuff that's not stated directly, but as you observe the way the characters interact with each other, you can see there's some character development, and you can piece together what their backstory is, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's like a really, really special skill to have to bring to genre films.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I even like wrote down somewhere in here that was like, there's not really a lot of exposition in this movie at all. There's maybe like one scene where like there's like an exposition dump, but really it just like kind of like lays it out, and you kind of put the pieces together. I mean, some things are told to you, but you really get a sense of who these people are, and that's one thing I did like about their last movie, The Deeper You Dig. Like, you really get a sense of who these characters are. Like, they like through just little things, like you said, like you mentioned, like in The Deeper You Dig, like the father, the guy just kind of eating dinner alone, and you know, you get the feeling like he's had kind of had like a rough life. That's not told to you, but you just assume it.
Yeah, it's in his actions, like in his face, you know, and just his demeanor and all that, you know, and it's all explained to you, you know, the way the guy carries himself, like he's just like this loner who there's some thing in his past that's put him in this place, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his like a credit to his acting. First time around, I didn't even realize that was him playing the hiker. Like, he couldn't have like. But it was such a different character, and it just looked completely different. He didn't have the Death Haven haircut, um, Death Heaven, whatever. I was like, oh wait, that was the dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, totally didn't even realize it. And yeah, just he's got, obviously, that's another thing I'll probably point out. The acting within the family is the strongest in this movie. Like them being such a tight unit definitely benefits like the movies they make. They're definitely comfortable in scenes together, and those the scenes that felt the most natural in the movie. I actually, the one big revelation, I did not know there was another daughter. I did not know Lulu Adams was the sister of Zelda. Didn't know that.
Yes, apparently she's not so into the filmmaking trip, so she's pursuing other things. Alleged, you know, apparently.
Allegedly. Okay.
Not
Well,
not
she's
alleged,
good in
not
this.
allegedly. I misspoke. I meant
Oh.
apparently. Apparently,
Oh.
there's no
Okay. All
alleged
right.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Hellbender, which I was fortunate enough to see this a while ago, and so I watched it a couple times. Like, you know, I got like a screener, and then I
Yeah.
watched it again when it showed up on Shudder after the debut. And so here we are. We're talking about it, and yeah, it's come out in a time when there's a lot of these types of folk horror types of films. Like you and I talked about Antlers, you know, that came out recently.
Right.
You know, late last year, Severin put out that boxed set of folk horror, along with the documentary, about a 3-hour documentary about the subject. And it seems to be in the sort of consciousness of people, this, you know, nature based, folklorish, female centric sort of films. And this
Yeah.
definitely, but true to most of their films, it's not really about that per se. Like, that's like the backdrop for the film. What it's really about is like mother-daughter relationship, and a woman growing into a young girl growing into a woman and realizing her full powers, really.
I felt the exact same. I wrote down the same thing. Like, this really is a mother-daughter story, really about a mother's anxiety and a daughter's curiosity and coming into her own. And after seeing, I've only seen two of their films now, but I unsurprisingly, family is a really strong theme in their work, I've noticed.
Yeah, and it's not like this conventional thing that they discuss in their films. That's not the conversation. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
this very I would say almost instinctual, familial kind of vibe that they're trying to communicate with you. You know, And so I mean, some of the key elements, and I don't want to go into every aspect of the plot because I want everyone to see the film and just kind of
Sure.
take their own what they can take out of it. But essentially, we have the character's name. Zelda plays Izzy, Toby plays the mother, and Lulu Adams plays this renegade girl, Amber, who's on the outside. And then John Adams is like this hiker who has a very small part in the film.
Yeah, surprisingly small.
Yeah, he's like almost like an extra in the movie.
Yeah, that was another reason why I was like, wait, that was him?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And the writing and directing credits are shared by John, Zelda, and Toby. So the three of them all were collaborative on the production of this movie.
yeah. Yeah, well, like right off the bat, like this movie has like such a like weird like 70s feel to it. Like I can imagine this existing as like some obscure thing that was made in like 1973. Like it kind of it is paced like an old, just weird movie. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, where
Interesting.
like you kind of feel like the movie is like meandering. There's just a lot of like long scenes of like not a lot happening, but like there's just something spooky and eerie about it. This movie reminded me a lot of something like that.
I was thinking the same thing, that it had like a throwback vibe because of these days like films are very cutty. There's like fast edits and things get to the point very quickly, and this movie definitely develops and is like has more of a brooding sort of nature to it, and and there's also apparently this was filmed during the pandemic too, so.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. It does have a little bit of that feel to it. There's like a scene where like the mother and daughter are talking to, I think it's a park forest ranger or something, and you can tell like they're standing like the mandatory 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
But that's not a complaint. You had to do what you had to do to get movies made during the pandemic.
Well, apparently, the original script had other elements in it that were removed as a result of having to shoot in like under whatever social distancing rules.
Right.
But
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, but I think that it actually benefits like the kind of isolationist atmosphere in the film, because really it's about Izzy and the mother are living out in the woods by themselves, and the mother has convinced Izzy that she's sick. Which also plays on just as well as the anxiety that everyone was going through about being sick and staying away from people. And but the reality, and this is not giving away any major plot elements, is that the mother and the daughter are part of a line of these like supernatural creatures. Okay, and and she's actually trying to shield her from manifesting her true nature. And as a result, she has to stay in the woods. She can't really be around people. And she has to have a strict diet of no meat.
Or nothing living.
Nothing
Like,
well, I guess you're right.
has,
Nothing living. Yeah, because she's eating like pine cones and things like that.
Yeah, there was that shot of them like having dinner, and it's like pine cones and stuff like that. It was one of the more interesting elements to me, that like, and she's just a teenager and she's just accepting it. Like, this is her life.
And that plays just with like the whole element of growing up as a kid. Like you just believe what your parents tell you,
Yeah, exactly. And, you see like that the mother probably grew up maybe too exposed to this thing that they are. And she's fighting within herself to be is fighting like this good and evil struggle within the mother, and she doesn't want to pass that on to the daughter and wants to protect her at all costs.
And the thing that they are, this creature, I would say is and we didn't really talk about this in the interview, but because actually at the time of the interview I hadn't seen the film, and
okay.
It's I saw the film after we did the interview. They sent me a screener, so. The actual entity or the supernatural element to this is not exactly like a Wendigo, but is similar in some ways to like a Wendigo like spirit kind of thing.
Yeah, and I felt like that stuff wasn't completely fleshed out. Like it didn't have like a really like great sense of what they were, what their purpose was, but that's okay because really like it's sort of like you said, like it's kind of like the background to this mother-daughter story
Yeah, I
and
mean, like
coming of age story.
when we watched Antlers, it was about a Wendigo, so you had to go into the deep, folklore about that. But this, it's not really about that. It's about like a relationship and growing up and all that.
Right, yeah, and it's like again like like there wasn't like a ton of like narrative thrust to this movie. It really is just kind of like a lot of scenes of like the mother and the daughter, and but it kind of works more as like this experimental like art film. And given say like that the drama background, like it also kind of works as like an indie drama. You know what I mean, with like supernatural overtones and this kind of experimental nature.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I liked about it. And it was shot. It looked great too, man. There was like some awesome film work going on in that too.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out. Like the effects were much better in this than their last movie. Like it's not an effects heavy film by any means, but there's cool like they're doing like these sort of like waving their hands and making this like dust drawings and stuff out of the air, and it looked very believable. It didn't like look digital or anything like that. Um, there's also these like weird psychedelic montages that are awesome, also lending into the 70s experimental vibe.
Yeah, in the '70s, like that acid thing was like more front and center. You know what I mean? Now it's meth. You know what I mean? But back in the
Yeah.
'70s, people were experience like the psychedelic world.
It almost kind of reminded me at times of Altered States, where they would have those just weird bursts of psychedelic imagery, and this movie had some of that too, with the mother kind of like watches over the daughter, like both like literally like watches over her, but she also does these like sort of like I don't know what they were, just like spells where she can kind of like see what the daughter's up to at all times.
Yeah, then that plays into the folk part of this thing, where there's like this element of witchcraft and the supernatural, and there's that element, the supernatural element to this thing. Also, they're in a heavy metal band too, which is
Yeah.
which actually was that cut was like in the beginning. It kind of gives a little bit of like a backstory of like there's like a shot from the past, obviously, and then it cuts to them jamming out in their practice space. Where Zelda's playing drums and Toby's the bass player and singer, and note that the microphone placement is very reminiscent of Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah, yeah, and Rickenbacker bass is, but also what Lemmy played, right?
That's right.
And I know from listening to your interview with them that they are very much into alternative and metal and stuff like that, and that the band in the movie, they're an actual band, right? Like the mother, the daughter, the father, they're all in a band together, right?
Yeah, Hellbender. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. It started out apparently as Hellbender was the band.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, what close family. I can't imagine being in a band with you, with my family.
Definitely not. No.
Imagine being in a band with your parents.
Nope. Not even remotely.
Yeah, so it is kind of like a jarring beginning. You have this opening that kind of sets up, there's something going to supernatural is going to be happening. I wasn't sure what time it was supposed to be. I thought it was going to like ancient, but then someone like takes out like a pistol. So I'm like, oh, it can't be that old. And it was like a 6-shooter. Like maybe it was like, late 1800s cowboy times or whatever. But you get a sense it was a long time ago. And then there's this just jarring cut to these two girls just rocking out in their basement.
Yeah. But that, once again, it's like you got a teenage girl. There's no one around. So how do you manage that? Like what do you do to like develop that person. You know, you can only take so many walks in the woods. You can only like learn about like herbs and roots and all that stuff for so much. You have to express yourself some way, you know, and you know, in the modern era, let's do a band, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like, you know, like you sense her growing frustration with her life. Like at one point, she's going through her hikes and she meets this going on one of her hikes and meets like a hitchhiker, and I think that is really what begins like her curiosity about like what else is out there. Um, I mean, it takes a while to get there. This film is like 84 minutes long, but it still takes its time, really like doling everything out. Like I said, it's not like a huge narrative thrust to it, but for me, like I thought, like her interaction with the hiker was the beginning of her. Like I think there's a whole world out there that she gets curious about, like, and you know, she sees this girl like in this house and is curious about who's she, what's this, you know, what's this like, you know, can I have friends, can I have a normal life.
Well, did you catch that that the hitchhiker, his niece is Amber?
Yes, I did
Yeah.
catch that. Yeah, I figured like, yeah, because that's what I mean. That's why, you know, he mentions that to her, and then like she kind of maybe goes exploring because of that, like, oh, there's other people out here too. And you know, Amber couldn't be more different than Izzy.
Well, she's just a regular girl, like just a regular normal kid, you know. They're swimming in someone else's pool, partying, you know, that kind of thing.
And I like that she's like fascinated by her, and it's not like a sexual thing at all. She's just really fascinated by this person at first, is like who can just have a normal life and have friends and drink tequila and do all these things that she can't do.
Now, the tequila part is that's like very that's like a pivotal point in the film because there's a worm in the tequila.
Yeah.
Now in your travels across this globe, have you ever eaten the worm?
I have never eaten a worm. No.
I
I
haven't.
have in Japan. I drank this thing. This they brought out this jar of this alcohol with a snake in it, like a fermented snake.
Oh man.
And I was like, yeah, I'll try it. I mean, like it's one thing. I'm just not really afraid of snakes. Um, and it was like one drink, and 15 minutes later, I was on the floor. It was the strongest thing I've ever had in my life. But I've never had a tequila worm.
Did you think the
Uh,
snake had something to do with the strength of the alcohol?
um, maybe,
Like there was like some
maybe
like kind of venom or
some
something
some
in it?
kind of venom in there. Yeah, like I turned into like a fucking superhero or something afterwards. Um, but yeah, like well, let's talk about the pool scene a little bit. I mentioned before, like the acting between the family members is really solid, really good all around. I feel like some of the outsiders, like in this movie, don't give as good of a performance. Like the pool scene played out kind of like awkwardly and weird. Like there's just like a drum set there, and like, but like it was awkward and weird. But like I was like, I think this has to like be intentional. Like you're supposed to see it from Izzy's point of view and how like just awkward and weird all of this is for her.
I could see that. Some of the acting by the other people was a little bit you know, a little strained, I think. But you
Yeah,
know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, that's how things roll sometimes. But I really was digging on the just the alienation vibe of someone who doesn't really interact with people, and this is like this whole other world of, you know, this other girl, you know, who's maybe a couple of years older or whatever, maybe, and like she has this like this drinking. She's never had alcohol before, and there's a she has to eat the worm. And I've never. I mean, I'm not a big, you know, partier, but I also have never eaten a worm either. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, yeah. I don't know, like other than like a woohoo party thing. I don't think it benefits you in
Yeah. I
any
mean,
way whatsoever.
I'm probably more likely to actually eat a worm like without the tequila. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as a kind
Yeah.
of survival like tactic or something, you know. But
Yeah. Like you're like, yeah, you're stranded in the woods. Like your van broke down. You just wandered off to get gas and got lost.
yeah, something like that. Exactly like that. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
the worm, the flesh, the life essence is what supercharges her, and it's like almost this like psychedelic experience, this like glimpse into another world that exists, that is within her reach to be yet fully manifested. You know what I mean? And that's when things start changing for her.
Yeah. The dynamic like between her and the mother start to change. The mother, like, the worst things that, like her anxiety is realizing maybe I can't protect her from the world or the world from her or and that's like I said, like minor crit like I wish the movie sort of had a little bit more of like a narrative path, because like you get like that moment and you think, oh, things are going to be different, and they are slightly, but it's still like a lot of scenes just the mom and the daughter sort of like hanging out. Like I kind of thought like, oh, you're going to see this like dark change in Izzy, and you do see it, but it's
Well,
like very, very subtle.
yeah, but now I'm going to say that the first time around, the first viewing, I kind of felt similar to you.
Hmm.
The second time I watched it, the more I started, maybe I had some time to reflect on it. I was thinking more about just growing up, like growing up with as a kid, and one day you're reading comic books on the couch, and throwing the football around or whatever, riding your bikes, and then slowly you turn into this guy who's like listening to punk rock music and like drawing upside down crosses like in his bedroom.
Right.
It's not
Oh
like
no.
it's not like an overnight thing. It's you're rejecting Christianity and stuff, and
Yeah. Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
just go from 0 to 60. You're not just like one day you're this nice regular kid and the other day you got like a mohawk and, tattooing like the Black Flag bars and stuff like that.
Right. That is a good point. I also like wrote down like this movie when it doesn't really convey the passage of time very well. Like there was a moment in the line like, "Oh, remember your friend from last year?" I was like, "What? That was a year ago?"
Yeah, that was I agree with that. The passage of time is not conveyed very well in this film. It seems like it all takes place within like a month or something like that.
Yeah, like that's one of the criticisms I would have for it. It was that was a little weird. Like, yeah, it all feels like very compact. Like this is happening over like a week or so, but they do show like how like there is a darkness to Izzy that the mom was concerned about, and then they do it very subtly. They don't show it like with her like with like ominous music or anything like that. But there's a nice scene of her and the mother, like she's kind of teaching her about what she is, and she picks up a stick and she turns it into a flower. But Izzy turned like what she turns the stick into is much darker and troublesome. And that little moment just I think really conveyed it well, that there's something within her that the mother is right to be afraid of.
Yeah, and that gets underscored more as the film progresses. But I don't know. It's funny. It's like I maybe, and this might be a personal point of view, is like I don't necessarily like I see this movie more as like an allegory, but I don't
Yeah.
necessarily feel that there's like it's not so much like a good evil thing. It's like different overtones of the same thing, like different harmonics that certain people exist on. It's like the same way, like out of all the people that we know as people, there's some people who are more light. They're into like, you know, the more lighter aspects of life, and there's some people who are dark, who are into like the more darker, sinister stuff. And it's like, and that's just the harmonics of people. And that's kind of what I felt this movie. I mean, this movie was like a little more hyperbolic than that at the end,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
but that also has to do with like destroying like your older, like who you used to be, and giving a rebirth to a new person of who you are going to be. You know?
Yeah, and I think a moment I really like is I won't give too much away, is the poem that that she reads to her mother, and it really just sums up like what's happening and the changes that are happening, and like you know, like just feeds into to the mother's you know, fear and anxiety. I thought that was a great moment. Uh, I really like the shared dreaming aspect of it too, and all the imagery that went along with that. I really liked that aspect of the movie a lot.
Yeah, it's that's one of the biggest selling points of the film is how it looks, and I just, you know, I think it looks tremendous, man. It's just the dreamy aspect, the way the colors are being used, these psychedelic parts. You know, it's I have to say it's not really like anything I've ever really seen before on out of like you know, a Shudder exclusive. You know.
Yeah, it moves to the beat of its own drum. Like those guys, they are on their own wavelength, and I'm coming around to it. Like, um, there's this one shot in the movie where it looks like this like leper or someone like wrapped in like, you know, all these like, you know, hermit clothes of like walking up a hill while someone is perched on a light. It's like I I don't even know why that shot's in the movie, but it's gorgeous. Like it's such a cool shot. And I know it's like a dream or whatever, but like that's a great shot. Like I would put that as a screensaver, you know,
Yeah.
on my TV. Uh, I also, yeah, the locations. I don't know if you caught that. Like there's a scene where the daughter's going hiking and she walks by this like tree that's like fallen down. It looks like the same place where they shot a scene in The Deeper You Dig.
Well, it
The
could be.
scene where like the daughter's floating in the background and and the mother's like sitting on the tree. I was like, oh, I think that looks like the same location. What do they film these movies in upstate New York and in like the Portland area, or?
Well, I know that the Deeper You Dig was filmed in the Catskills, which is where they live, and
Hmm,
if I remember correctly, some of this was shot in the Northwest.
okay,
Yeah, but some of it
yeah,
could very well have been shot in the Catskills.
yeah. I mean, beautiful, like great use of unique locations too. You know what I mean? Like you don't see a lot of like movies that are filmed in like areas like that, and they definitely like use it to their advantage. Like the atmosphere of this movie is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's common in both of the films we discussed so far. Is that the cinematography is great. You know what I mean? It's just there's like these lingering shots and everything looks awesome.
Yeah, and there's that cool like drone shot too of them driving. That scene where like, you know, the mom's going into town, she buys that like kind of like that crown thing. I was like, I feel like I've seen that crown before somewhere. Like, wasn't that like it was very similar to Paimon in Hereditary.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Crowns
That's a
are a big thing these days. It seems like,
yeah.
you know, horns, you know, crowns, stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. First time through, I was like, I didn't even get why that scene of her going to town is in the movie. But like second time through, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get it now.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, we're not going to give away the ending, but like, did you? I gotta say, I kind of saw the ending coming, but not at all in the way they delivered it. That was, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I knew that there was a big confrontation coming, but the ending itself was once again like an option that I hadn't really considered.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like sort of like you kind of saw aspects of it coming, but the way it unfolded and went down, I was like, okay, wow, that's that's not at all what I thought. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's obvious. I really dug this movie, man, and I dug it more on a second viewing, and I think I dig it more after just like listening to the family, like, you know, your interview with them and knowing like what they're all about, what their vibe is. Like I really enjoyed this one. It's a weird movie. There's really nothing like it. It's
Yeah,
not perfect,
yeah.
but it's very enjoyable, very unique. Like
Well, the other thing which is interesting, it's like I don't ever want to see them change their process either. You know, like sometimes you watch films by other directors and other filmmakers. You're like, oh, if they only had like another $1 million, like I don't know how much more money or resource. Well, I mean, resources are always useful to people, but like, I mean, I'm sure money would be great too. But like for me personally, I'm like, I don't know if these guys need anything more, really.
Yeah, exactly. I like I said, like this movie obviously was not expensive, like, or they didn't have a lot of money to work with. But I thought what they did great with what they had, and everything looked believable. You know, it wasn't. I think that was one of the things I kind of didn't like about the one before, the DB Jig. I thought the effects were not believable, and actually, and in some instances, I thought they were completely unnecessary. But you know, here obviously they play more of a part, and they are necessary, and they're very good. And yeah, I think this was for me like a big leap forward from their last one. Like the last one had a lot that to admire, but ultimately I think I gave it like a 2.5.
Yeah, yeah, you didn't give it a very good mark on that one. Yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah. The funny thing is, like,
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, oh, well, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see these guys get any more money. Like, I think you. And they're like, well, actually, Mike, we kind of would need to have, but it's like, but I mean, like
No,
a big,
but I know what you mean.
yeah,
You don't want to see them making like a Marvel movie or something like that. Or
like they don't need to have like Brad Pitt like playing in the film or anything like that. I like it the kind of the way the process they have is the way it is. It's great. Maybe with like with more resources at their disposal will be great. That's about it.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, this seems to be like kind of a hit. People seem to really enjoy it, so it wouldn't surprise me if like they can get like a little bit more for their next one, or like people are going to be more interested in what they're doing, and as long as they can continue to do things their way, I think that that's a good thing. We're going to see with what Benson and Moorhead, like they the indie guys who did a lot with a little are now playing in a really big sandbox. They're doing a Marvel movie, and we're going to get to see like, will they keep their identity, or wait, it's not a movie, it's a show, right?
Yeah, it's a show. It's the Moon Knight series that's going to be on Disney.
Yeah, they're very curious about that. If it will maintain their feel and sensibilities, or if it'll like go the Marvel route and just kind of feel faceless.
Well, they also have another film coming out called Something in the Dirt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to come out soon, I think, and it's the same process as they made the Endless and
yeah.
Spring and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that. I knew someone that was worked in it, but I'm not sure if they're going to be in the finished film. Yeah, very curious about that one.
I just rewatched those first three. Well, not the first three, right? I mean, I don't know if they're the first three, but I just rewatched Spring, Endless, and the other one,
Resolution.
I just rewatched all those because they're all on Shudder right now.
Resolution is still my favorite, I think.
I lean towards Spring, man. I mean, I love all of them. Resolution's great. There's that scene with the French guy out in the woods, which is like, that's like my favorite thing in that whole, where it's just the exposition about what went on out there.
Yeah.
Where, the esoteric writings and reflective light and the membrane. Yeah. It's just so fucking intense, man. And, but there's something about Spring, which I thought was like, it just, I don't know, man. It's, I really enjoyed it, man. It's like this, Lovecraftian, like kind of, Dagon-esque thing with like a romantic drama in there, and
yeah. Don't get me wrong, Spring is great. It just feels sort of like the outlier, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like all their other movies take place within like the same universe, where Spring is completely separate from that.
Well, there is one there is a connection to the other two films from Spring.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
The character of Shitty Dave.
Really? Is he in Spring?
They mention him.
I didn't catch that at all. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. After watching Spring recently in context with the other films, when they talked about Shitty Dave, I was like, oh shit, this is all in the same universe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Everyone
cool.
knows a shitty Dave.
Well, that's the other thing about Spring. Just like the whole atmosphere of his life at home, it reminds me of like my life in the '90s, I guess. like kind of like
Sure.
all these like lurker types, like the meth guys, like "What's up, bitch?" You know that guy. Like he reminds me of like I can think about 20 guys that I know that were exactly like that dude. You know.
Yeah, I lived with a guy like that.
Yeah, you looking at my girlfriend? You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and just the hijinks that kid got up to reminded me of like a younger, freer era of my own life.
Absolutely, totally agree. I got to watch those again. It's been on. It's been a minute, especially I think Endless was the most recently I've seen one of those three. But so for giving out grades for Hellbender, where are you at?
I give it a 4, a solid 4.
I give it a 4 as well.
Yeah.
First viewing, I would have maybe gone a little bit lower. Second viewing, I really enjoyed it even more, and I felt like I had a better understanding of what it was supposed to be. Like I said, a few issues with acting, maybe some pacing things, but overall, a very unique movie, and I think we need more of that in the world today, where everything is just, you know, IP fucking movies. And I know at the beginning of the show I praised how great Batman was, and that there's a way to do it and do it right, and you're about to see. But I just like that, like, you're starting to see more unique, different voices in horror movies, and you're not just, like, I'll take this over a fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 any day.
Yeah. 100%.
Where that
man.
was just cynical branding, money making bullshit, but this kind of stuff is from the heart. Like, these people put everything into it, like, and it's up on screen, and that to me is always going to be more interesting than junk. Not to say you can't make a great legacy sequel. I mean, we saw with Halloween, they did it well. One of them they did right. But yeah, so 4, agreed.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and it's on Shudder, as well as the Benson and Morehouse films, and there was a huge dump of French films on Shudder, like Le Vide, Trouble Every Day.
I saw that.
Yeah, man, they're not fucking around over on Shudder, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to do that to myself and rewatch all those French movies, man. And the fucking shit is brutal.
Have you seen Trouble Every Day, the Claire Denis film?
I have not seen that. No,
Dude.
I did see Le Vide, whatever. I saw that years ago, and I'd be curious to see it again, because I remember thinking, like, wow, this couldn't be more different than Inside. Like,
yeah. Well, Mike and I are going to be doing Trouble Every Day next episode.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
So I let the cat out of the bag, as they say.
Okay. Well, I'll have to watch that before I listen.
Yeah. I recommend it. It's got Vincent Gallo in it. It's like, I always like seeing him in movies.
Prince Vince, dude. Yeah.
And,
shout out to Vincent Gallo, man. If you're listening, you're welcome on the podcast anytime.
Yeah. Well, next question I have for you is, should I wear my black skull ring or my silver skull ring tonight to the movie?
Black.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's the one I have on right now. All right, cool.
All right, see? Yeah.
So, yeah, man.
Make sure you sit up right up front and let everyone see it, too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We're going to, actually, I got to leave fairly soon. I'm going to check out the menu and pre-order my meal because it's dinner time. So
awesome. Text me and let me know what you think. I'm dying to know what you think of this.
I will. So that's it for this week, guys, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Bye, everyone.